It was supposed to be just another quiet dinner date. October 28, 2024, a crisp autumn evening in Kansas City. The golden lights from Nana Rosa's Italian restaurant glowed softly through the window as Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift sat laughing over homemade pasta and stories only two people in love could share. The world outside felt calm, ordinary, peaceful. But within minutes, that peace would shatter, and what happened next would turn them into unexpected guardian angels for a family they'd never even met. As the waiter cleared their plates, Travis stood to help Taylor with her coat. That's when it happened, the piercing sound of tires screeching against asphalt, followed by a sickening thud that froze the entire restaurant in silence. "Oh my God," Taylor gasped, eyes wide as she turned toward the window. Out on the crosswalk, a woman lay motionless on the ground. Her pregnant belly was clearly visible under her jacket. And beside her, a little girl, no more than 4 years old, stood trembling, clutching a stuffed elephant, crying for her mom. The car that had hit them was already gone. Its taillights vanished into the dark Kansas City night, leaving behind only the echo of chaos and a few shattered pieces of a headlight glimmering on the street. Before Taylor could even process what was happening, Travis was already sprinting out the door. His instincts as an athlete, and as a man, took over. He dashed across the street, his heart pounding. "Ma'am, don't move," he shouted, kneeling beside her. "We're going to help you." The woman stirred weakly, trying to sit up. "Sophia, where's Sophia?" "I'm right here, Mama," the little girl whispered, her tiny voice shaking. "You got hurt by the car." Taylor ran over, crouching next to the child, her voice calm and warm. "Hey sweetheart, my name's Taylor. Your mama's going to be okay, but we need to help her, alright? Can you be brave for me?" The woman winced in pain as she tried to move her left leg. "I can't, something's wrong with my foot, and the baby," she placed her hand over her stomach protectively. "What's your name?" Travis asked softly, steadying her shoulders so she wouldn't strain herself. "Maria," she said through clenched teeth. "Maria Rodriguez. Please make sure Sophia's okay." Taylor took the little girl's trembling hand. "Sophia's right here with me, Maria. We're not going anywhere until we know you're both safe." Travis was already on the phone with 911. In the distance, sirens began to wail. But Maria's voice broke again, filled with fear. "I can't afford an ambulance," she cried. "I can't afford the hospital. Please, just let me go home." Travis looked at her gently, yet firmly. "Ma'am, you just got hit by a car. You need medical help. Don't worry about the cost right now, okay? Just breathe." Then, the words that stopped both Taylor and Travis cold. "Mama," Sophia whispered, tears falling down her cheeks. "Are you going to go away like Daddy did?" Maria's face crumpled. "No, baby. Mama's not going anywhere. Mama's just a little hurt, that's all." Taylor's eyes filled with tears. She brushed a curl from Sophia's face. "Your daddy's not here anymore." Sophia shook her head slowly. "Daddy was a soldier. But he went to heaven. Now it's just me and Mama, and the baby in Mama's tummy." The sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights reflected off the restaurant windows. The paramedics arrived within moments. While Travis helped guide them to Maria, Taylor stayed with Sophia, holding her hand tightly as the little girl buried her face in her shoulder. The medics worked quickly, checking Maria's vitals, stabilizing her leg, monitoring the baby. She was scared but conscious, and the baby's heartbeat was steady. Relief swept through the crowd, but Maria's anxiety didn't fade. "I can't leave Sophia alone," she said. "She doesn't know anyone here. I don't have any family." "She's coming with us," Taylor said without hesitation. "Sophia, would you like to ride with your mama to the hospital?" "We'll come too." In the flashing ambulance lights, Taylor sat beside the little girl while Travis held Maria's hand, reassuring her everything would be okay. None of them knew it yet, but this night, born from tragedy, would change all their lives forever. And what happened next, would prove that real heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes, they just show up when you need them most. Maria sat on the edge of her worn-out couch, staring at the window streaked with raindrops. Outside, New York was crying with her. Her daughter Sophia slept soundly in her arms, her tiny hands clutching the faded plush bunny that had been their only comfort through countless nights. Rent was due. The fridge was empty except for half a carton of milk. Maria had prayed, cried, and whispered to heaven for help. But help never came. Until that day. She didn't know what made her go out in the storm. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe it was faith. She wrapped Sophia in a blanket and hurried down the street toward the little cafe on the corner, the only place that ever gave her a sense of warmth. The bell above the door jingled softly as she stepped inside, dripping wet and trembling. At that same moment, across the street, a black SUV stopped at a red light. Inside, Taylor Swift leaned against the window, lost in thought. Her eyes caught a small figure hurrying into the cafe, a young mother clutching a baby. Something in that image pierced her heart. Taylor couldn't explain it, but she felt a tug deep inside, the kind that whispers, "Stop. Can you pull over for a sec?" she asked her driver. A minute later, Taylor walked into the cafe. No cameras, no glam, just a hoodie and a simple bun. She ordered coffee and quietly watched Maria from across the room. The woman looked exhausted, her clothes soaked, her eyes swollen from tears, yet she smiled at her baby like the world was still worth loving. Taylor felt something shift inside her. Maybe because she knew what loneliness felt like. Maybe because behind all the fame and the lights, she'd been there too, invisible, broken, praying for someone to see her. When Maria went to pay for her coffee, the cashier shook her head. "It's already covered," she said with a smile. Maria blinked, confused. "By who?" The cashier nodded toward the corner table. But Taylor was gone. All that remained was a small folded napkin. Inside, written in simple blue ink. "You're not alone. Keep believing. T." Maria's hands trembled. She looked around, half expecting to see cameras or a setup. But it wasn't that kind of moment. It was quiet. Real. Holy. That night, she found a note slipped under her door. No name, just an address, a local outreach center with a job opening and a childcare program. She almost didn't go. She almost let fear win. But Sophia's smile gave her courage. When she arrived at the center the next morning, she froze. Standing in the hallway, surrounded by volunteers, was a tall man with a Kansas City Chiefs jacket and a smile that could light up a room. Travis Kelce. He noticed her hesitation and laughed softly. "Hey there, you look like you could use a warm meal." Maria didn't know what to say. She just nodded, and for the first time in months, felt seen. Travis had been helping with Taylor's new community project, one focused on rebuilding lives quietly, without publicity. He had no idea who Maria was or what she'd been through. But something in her eyes told him she'd fought more battles than most people could imagine. "Let's get you started," he said, handing her a bowl of soup. And that was the beginning, not of a charity story, but of divine timing. As Maria sat at the long wooden table with Sophia on her lap, she looked up at the posters on the wall, Restoration Project, Hope for Single Mothers. Her eyes filled with tears. Because in that moment, she understood, every tear, every night she spent crying, every, why, God, had led her right here. And when she stepped outside after lunch, the sun finally broke through the clouds. The same SUV passed again. Taylor sat inside, looking out the window, smiling faintly as she watched Maria holding her baby in the sunlight. She whispered softly to herself, "Sometimes, all we need is a reminder that light still wins." Sparkles, what would you have done if you were in Taylor's place? Would you have stopped in the rain for a stranger? Tell me in the comments, I want to hear your heart. Speech balloon. The next few weeks passed like a dream Maria didn't dare to believe in. The outreach center became her second home. It wasn't fancy, chipped paint, old tables, second-hand toys, but it was filled with something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Travis was often there, helping serve meals or organizing donation drives. He didn't act like a celebrity. He joked with the kids, carried heavy boxes, and laughed so loudly that even the shyest little ones peeked from behind their mothers to smile. One morning, Maria came in early to clean the playroom before the others arrived. She sang softly under her breath, a lullaby Sophia loved. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. "Hey, that's beautiful," said a familiar voice. Maria froze and turned around. Taylor Swift stood in the doorway, holding a tray of muffins. No cameras, no assistants, just her, in jeans and a sweatshirt, smiling warmly. "I thought maybe the volunteers could use some breakfast," Taylor said gently. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "It was you," she whispered. "The cafe. The note." Taylor nodded softly. Sometimes, we're placed in each other's paths for a reason. They sat together on the floor, surrounded by toys and tiny chairs. Maria told her story: the job she lost, the home she couldn't afford, the nights she prayed for help. Taylor listened, not as a superstar, but as a woman who understood heartbreak and starting over. "Do you know what I've learned?" Taylor said quietly. "When life breaks us, it's not to destroy us. It's to rebuild us differently, stronger, softer, wiser." Maria smiled through her tears. "I don't feel strong." "Neither did I," Taylor said. "But look where we are now." From that day forward, Maria became part of the project, not as a recipient, but as a voice. She helped other single mothers navigate the same darkness she'd once walked through. Her kindness drew people in, her story gave them courage. Travis noticed. One afternoon, he stopped her after a meeting. "You know, you've got something powerful," he said. "People listen when you talk. You make them believe again." Maria laughed softly. "I just speak from my heart." "That's exactly what the world needs," Travis replied. Soon, word spread through the city about the quiet movement led by Taylor and Travis, not a charity, but a family. They called it the Lighthouse Project. Its mission was simple: to find those who'd lost their light and remind them it was never gone. Taylor wrote songs inspired by the stories she heard there, raw, real, filled with hope. Travis brought in coaches and mentors to help fathers and families rebuild from scratch. And Maria, once the woman sitting alone in a cafe with nothing but tears, became one of its beating hearts. But not everything was easy. One evening, as Maria was closing up the center, she found an eviction notice slipped under the door of her apartment again. Her stomach twisted, the past knocking once more. She thought about calling Taylor but hesitated. She didn't want to seem like she needed saving. Not anymore. So she prayed. Simple words, whispered through tears: "God, if you brought me this far, you'll show me the rest of the way." The next morning, when she arrived at the center, Travis met her at the door holding an envelope. "This came for you," he said. Inside was a job offer: full-time community coordinator, with housing included near the new center they were opening in Nashville. Maria gasped, covering her mouth. Taylor appeared behind him, smiling gently. "I told you, when light finds you, it never leaves." Maria broke down in tears. Not from sadness, but from gratitude too deep for words. She hugged them both, whispering, "Thank you for seeing me." Taylor's eyes glistened. "You helped us remember why we started." And as the three of them stood together under the morning sun, it felt less like coincidence and more like divine choreography, lives rewritten by love, faith, and a single act of kindness in the rain. Sun behind small cloud. Have you ever had someone show up in your life at the exact moment you needed them most? Share your story in the comments below, because your words might be someone's miracle today. Speech balloon sparkling heart. The sun was barely up when the bus rolled into Nashville. Maria held Sophia close, her little girl's head resting against her chest as the city skyline shimmered in golden light. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one she never saw coming. The Lighthouse Project had just opened its new center on the outskirts of town, a bright building with murals painted by local kids and the words, "You are seen. You are loved," etched above the doors. For Maria, it wasn't just a workplace. It was a second chance wrapped in grace. Taylor and Travis welcomed her like family. They helped her settle into a small apartment nearby, modest, but warm, with white curtains and the scent of new beginnings. For the first time in years, Maria didn't fall asleep crying. She fell asleep dreaming. Her days filled quickly. She coordinated volunteers, comforted mothers, planned meals, and sang to children in the daycare. Her laughter echoed through the hallways, and everyone said the same thing: Maria brings light wherever she goes. But new blessings often come with new battles. One afternoon, as she was sorting donated clothes, she overheard two volunteers whispering nearby. "She's only here because of Taylor," one said. "Yeah," the other replied, "connections get you everything." The word stung. Maria's hands froze mid-fold. Old wounds opened, the fear of never being enough, of always being a charity case. That night, as she tucked Sophia into bed, those voices echoed in her head. "You don't belong here." She sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. "God," she whispered, "why does doubt always follow me?" The next morning, she arrived early, hoping work would drown out the noise inside her heart. But when she opened the door, she stopped in her tracks. On the main wall, someone had painted new words overnight. "The ones who were overlooked become the ones who lift others." Beneath it, in small handwriting, was a note: "You belong here, always." Tears filled her eyes. Taylor must have known. She always did. Later that day, Travis dropped by after practice. He was sweaty, tired, still in his team gear, but smiling. "You okay, champ?" he asked. Maria laughed softly. "Trying to be." He leaned against the doorframe. "Let me tell you something. People talk, they'll always talk. But when you walk in purpose, you don't need to prove anything. You just keep walking." His words hit deep. Because that's exactly what she'd done, through storms, through fear, through nights when faith was the only thing she had left. In the following weeks, Maria poured even more of herself into the project. She started hosting heart evenings, quiet gatherings where mothers shared their stories, cried, and prayed together. Taylor sometimes came to sing softly in the background, her guitar echoing like a heartbeat through the room. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about who was watching. It was about healing. And something beautiful began to happen. The women who came broken started to stand taller. The children who were shy began to laugh again. And in every smile, every tear, every whispered "thank you," Maria saw pieces of her old self, finally whole again. One evening, as the sun set behind the center, Taylor joined her outside on the steps. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky turn pink and gold. "You know what I realized?" Taylor said softly. "Every person who walks through these doors, they don't just find hope. They become it." Maria smiled. "I used to think I was the one being rescued. But maybe I was being prepared to rescue others." Taylor nodded. "Exactly." The city lights flickered on below them, and in that moment, Maria understood, this wasn't the end of her story. It was just the middle of a miracle still unfolding. Sparkles, have you ever faced doubt even after your breakthrough? Tell me in the comments, your testimony might lift someone who's still in the storm. Speech balloon dizzy. Months had passed, and Maria's life in Nashville was slowly unfolding like a delicate sunrise. Sophia was thriving in kindergarten, her laughter filling their small apartment with joy. The baby, Carlos, was growing strong and healthy, a tiny warrior who already carried the legacy of his father in every curious glance. Maria had learned to breathe again. To trust again. To believe again. But life, as she had come to know, often tests the heart right when it feels safest. One rainy Thursday evening, Maria received a call from the hospital, a sudden complication with Carlos's checkup. Panic gripped her chest. She rushed through the slick streets, Sophia clutching her hand tightly, the baby asleep in her carrier. The walls of fear she had fought so hard to tear down threatened to collapse. When she arrived, nurses rushed them in. Carlos was fine, just a minor checkup needed. Relief washed over her, but it came with exhaustion, with the heavy realization of how fragile life was. She sat alone in the waiting room, cradling Sophia and Carlos in her arms, when her phone buzzed. A text message, "We're nearby. Want us to come in?" It was Taylor. And Travis. Within minutes, they arrived, not as celebrities, but as family. Taylor carried a small backpack of toys and snacks. Travis had a thermos of coffee and a warm smile. They sat with Maria quietly, letting her lean on them without a word. Sophia peeked from her mother's arms and immediately climbed onto Taylor's lap, her little fingers tugging gently at the guitar case beside her. "I can play you a song," Taylor said softly. And with that, she sang a lullaby, her voice weaving warmth and love into the sterile hospital walls. Travis held Carlos carefully, rocking him with a tenderness Maria had only imagined in dreams. For the first time since the accident, Maria let herself cry openly. Not for fear. Not for grief. But for gratitude so deep it left her breathless. "You didn't have to come," she whispered, her voice trembling. Travis shook his head. "You didn't have to face any of this alone. That's all." Taylor smiled, brushing Sophia's curls back. "Some people show up in your life when you least expect it. And sometimes, they stay long enough to remind you that love can be quiet, but powerful." That night, back at home, Maria sat on the small couch, Sophia asleep at her side, Carlos in his bassinet, and she reread the original note from the laptop delivery months ago. "Your friends who care." Her heart ached with emotion. The words were simple, but the truth was monumental. Sometimes, she realized, miracles didn't arrive with fanfare or headlines. Sometimes, miracles arrived in the form of someone holding your hand when your world was falling apart. And that's exactly what Taylor and Travis had done, not for fame, not for praise, but because they believed in the simple, profound power of showing up. The following week, Maria returned to the Lighthouse Project with renewed strength. She organized a special Thanksgiving dinner for the families who had come through the program, each plate a symbol of resilience, each smile a testament to survival. Taylor played quietly in the corner, strumming a familiar tune, while Travis tossed a football gently to the older children outside. Maria watched, her chest swelling with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about giving. It was about witnessing the cycle of love and courage. And she finally understood, her life, once broken and uncertain, had become a beacon for others. Sparkles, have you ever had strangers enter your life in ways that changed everything? Share your story in the comments, your words could remind someone that angels walk among us every day. Speech balloon sparkling heart. November 28, 2025, a crisp, early morning in Nashville. The city was waking slowly, but inside Maria's small apartment, life was exploding with joy. After months of fear, of worry, and of endless uncertainty, Carlos had arrived. A healthy, strong baby boy, with eyes that reflected the love and courage of the family who had waited for him. Maria held him in her arms, tears streaming down her face. Sophia peeked over her shoulder, eyes wide, her tiny hand resting against her baby brother's cheek. "He's perfect, Mama," she whispered. Outside the hospital, a quiet bouquet of flowers arrived. A card read simply, "Welcome to the world, little warrior." Your big sister has been waiting for you. T and Uncle Travis. Maria smiled through her tears. She had known all along that Taylor and Travis were special, but even now, she could hardly believe how deeply they had touched their lives. In the days that followed, life settled into a new rhythm. Maria returned to her lighthouse project duties with Sophia and Carlos by her side. The center became a sanctuary, a place where love wasn't just spoken, it was lived. Travis often stopped by, teaching Sophia how to throw a football in the courtyard behind their apartment. He laughed with her, encouraged her, and never treated her like just a little girl. He treated her like family, because that's exactly what she had become. Taylor brought her guitar and filled the apartment with music and laughter. She sang lullabies softly to Carlos and sometimes stayed up late with Maria, talking about dreams, life, and the beauty of small miracles. The most touching moment, however, came 6 months later. Sophia, now nearly 5, proudly held a drawing she had made in kindergarten. It depicted 4 figures, Maria, baby Carlos, and 2 smiling adults. Sophia pointed to the last 2 figures, her small voice serious and sure. They're angels, Mama. They love us. They help us. They're our family. Maria's hands shook as she held the picture close. Her heart overflowed. Because Sophia understood something profound, that love isn't always about blood, it's about presence, care, and unwavering support. And that's exactly what Taylor and Travis had given them, a family beyond their own. Quietly, without cameras, without social media, without seeking credit. Just consistent, real love. Maria's life had transformed from fear and uncertainty to hope and joy. She worked day shifts as a supervisor, Sophia thrived in school, and Carlos grew strong and healthy. And every few weeks, the 2 angels, Taylor and Travis, stopped by for dinner, for laughter, for football lessons, for music, and for warmth. Maria kept every note, every message, every small gift as a reminder that she wasn't alone. That night outside the restaurant, the moment she thought her world had fallen apart, had actually been the moment everything began to fall into place. Sometimes, she said to a friend recently, angels show up in ordinary moments. They don't announce themselves with trumpets or bright lights. They just show up, stay as long as you need them, and remind you that good people still exist in this world. And in the end, that's exactly what had happened. 2 strangers had become family. 2 celebrities had become guardian angels. And a young mother, a little girl, and a baby boy had discovered the quiet power of love, generosity, and faith. Sparkles, what about you? Have you ever experienced a stranger stepping in at the exact moment you needed help? Share your story in the comments, because Maria, Sophia, and Carlos' journey reminds us that heroes walk among us every day. Sometimes all it takes is showing up. Speech balloon sparkling heart.